Hi friends, welcome you all. From today we're going to start first unit of medical microbiology, and that is related to uh, different systems of our body and related disease with that system. So in that we're going to study respiratory system, gastrointestinal system, then kidney and liver, then genital system, as well as central nervous system. So here we will not going to study much more detail about their anatomy and physiology, but majorly we will focus upon the diseases related to this particular system. So first we will start with infections of the respiratory system, that is diseases related to respiratory system. We will cover some brief and basic aspects of anatomy and physiology also. So why is this important to study respiratory system and its pathogenicity? So respiratory system is the most commonly infected system, and healthcare provider will see more respiratory infections than any other system, any other type. So it is the most commonly infected system because the air we exchange, actually the gaseous exchange, it takes place in lungs, and it get purified in lungs. So this system is in direct contact with air, and we know that air contain different kinds of pathogen. So as this system is direct contact with air, so it is prone to more infections than any other system. So healthcare providers will see more respiratory infections than any other type. So this is the most susceptible and mostly infected system as far as many other systems they are concerned. So in case of overview of this lecture, so here we'll going to see first anatomy of respiratory system, then pathogens of respiratory system. In that we'll going to study different kinds of bacterial as well as viral and fungal pathogens that affect respiratory system. Okay. So the respiratory system, a major portal of entry for infectious organism. It is divided into upper and lower respiratory tract. Okay. So this is the major portal of entry for infectious organism because it is direct contact within air. So that's why it is a major portal of entry as far as organism is concerned, and this system is divided into upper as well as lower respiratory tract. So the division is based on structure and functions in each part, and two parts have different types of infections. So there are upper respiratory tract infections, they are different, and lower respiratory tract infections, they are different. So the upper respiratory tract, it contains it consists nasal cavity, then sinuses, then pharynx and larynx. So these are main parts of upper respiratory tract, and in that nasal cavity, it means it is part of nose, then sinuses, again it is part of nose, and pharynx and larynx. Infections are fairly common to this system and usually nothing more than an irritation. Okay. So the lower respiratory tract, it contains lungs as well as bronchi, and infections are more dangerous. So infections of these parts, that is lower respiratory tract, they are more of serious concern and can be very difficult for their treatment. So in case of anatomy of respiratory system, the most accessible system in the body. Okay, this is the most accessible system in the body for pathogens because of direct contact within other means open environment. So breathing brings clouds of potentially infectious pathogens. Okay, so breathing, normally we breathe many times, and that breathing exchange means intake of air as well as expels of air. So these intake of air contains lots of clouds of potentially infectious pathogen, and the body has variety of host defense mechanism. It includes innate immune response as well as adaptive immune response to fight against this pathogen. So the cells and mechanism that defend host from infection by other organism is non-specific, and adaptive is in case of adaptive is body's immune system prepare itself for future challenges. So these are two immune system, they continuously work to fight against this kind of pathogen. So here in this picture you can see the upper as well as lower respiratory tract, and in case of upper respiratory tract you can see nostrils, then sinus, then other parts, and in lower respiratory tract you can see lungs and bronchioles. Okay, so this is the picture showing upper as well as lower respiratory tract. So in case of upper respiratory tract, it is continuously exposed to potential pathogen, and lower respiratory tract is essentially a sterile environment. Okay, this is the main thing. So upper part is continuously exposed to a potential pathogens, and lower respiratory tract is essentially sterile environment. So many bacterial organisms infect respiratory system. So upper respiratory tract also portal of entry for viral pathogens, and vaccination has eliminated many respiratory infections. So some still see in underdeveloped parts of the world. See here you can see different kinds of diseases of upper as well as lower respiratory tract. In that you can see common cold, then influenza, then diphtheria, then strep throat, then otis media. It is basically infection of ear, and all these are infection of respiratory tract. In that common cold is again common disease, then parainfluenza is there, then diphtheria is there, again infection of throat, then strep throat. Then in case of bacterial infection, Q fever is there, then chlamydia pneumoniae is there, then tuberculosis is the main infection of lung, then legionellosis, then pertussis, pseudomonas pneumococcal pneumonia is again main infection of lung. And here some major serious diseases, it includes SARS, that is severe acute respiratory syndrome, then pneumocystis pneumonia is there, then Hennett primary syndrome is there, then respiratory syncytial virus is there. So all these are different kinds of infection of upper as well as lower respiratory tract. So respiratory pathogens are easily transmitted from human to human. Okay, so due to exchange of gases and continuous exposed to air, so the respiratory infections they can easily transfer through human to human, and they circulate within community, and infections spread easily. So nowadays all we are facing the COVID-19 outbreak. It is again important respiratory viral diseases, and it is newly emerging disease, and we know that the disease can be transferred through human to human contact. So some respiratory pathogens exist as a part of normal flora, and others are acquired from animal sources, water as well as air. So fungi are also source of respiratory infection. So this condition is usually seen in immunocompromised patients, and most dangerous are Aspergillus and pneumocystis. So besides bacteria as well as viruses, there are some fungi. They causes infections of respiratory tract, but this condition is seen in immunocompromised person, such as in case of AIDS person and other persons whose immunity get compromised due to some other infections, say for example cancer. So some of the pathogens are restricted to certain sites. Say for example Legionella only infects the lung, and other pathogens cause infections in multiple sites. So Streptococcus can cause middle ear infection as well as sinuses as well as pneumonia. So these are types of area of infection. So some pathogens they are restricted to particular area, and other pathogens they can cause multiple infection at multiple sites. So these are sites of infection. So frequent sites of infection are middle ear, then mastoid cavity, then nasal sinus and nasopharynx. So these are frequent sites of infection. Here they are mentioned. As far as defense of respiratory system is concerned, so respiratory system has significant defenses. The upper respiratory tract has mucociliary escalator, then coughing, and the lower respiratory tract has alveolar macrophages. So in case of mucociliary escalator, so they cilia-like movement in nose, in our nostrils, they continuously remove pathogens from inside to outside, as well as coughing, it expels microorganism. And in case of lower respiratory tract, alveolar macrophages, they are the main cellular defense as a part of main cellular defense. Okay. So here you can see various depends of this particular respiratory system. In that mucociliary, asculator traps, derbies and bacteria which are then moved to esophagus out of the respiratory system. Then in case of alveolar macrophages are a important part of the host defense. They, by the process of phagocytosis, they engulf pathogen. In case viral infections can be disrupted function of respiratory epithelium, which allows bacteria to enter a respiratory system. Then bronchial carcinoma can obstruct bronchus infection and can arise because of obstruction. So these are different means areas of respiratory infections, and their respective defense mechanism are mentioned in this particular figure. So here first we will see bacteria infecting the respiratory system. So it can be divided into groups leading on infections they cause. So otis media, sinusitis and mastoides, the portion of temporal bone of skull that is behind the ear, which contains open air containing spaces. So these are the infection of ear, in that ear and nose, and in that otis media is again common, then sinusitis and mastoides. So these areas they exposed to continuous air. Then pharyngitis is there, then typical and atypical community acquired pneumonia is there, and hospital acquired nosocomial pneumonia is there. So these are different types of organisms they infect. In that Streptococcus pneumoniae is there, Haemophilus influenza is there, Streptococcus aureus is there, and a group A Streptococcus is there, and these are respective antibodies, say for example amoxicillin, ciprofloxacin, erythromycin, all these antibiotics we can use for treatment of these kind of diseases. So these are the causative agents of otis media, sinusitis as well as mastoides. And in case of pharyngitis, it is caused by group A Streptococcus, then group C Streptococcus, then Corynebacterium diphtheria, then Chlamydia pneumoniae as well as Mycoplasma pneumoniae. So these are respective antibiotics, say for example benzyl penicillin, amoxicillin, we can use for treatment of these clinical complications. Here detection of type of bacteria means which type of bacteria is causing infection we can detect by blood agar cultures. So here this portion will not going to study much more detail. Now, what are the bacterial infections of upper respiratory tract? It includes laryngitis, then epiglottis, then otis media, then mastoides, sinusitis, then pharyngitis, scarlet fever and diphtheria. So these are the main bacterial infections of upper respiratory tract. We will going to study in detail each one by one. So in first laryngitis and epiglottis. So laryngitis is the swelling and irritation, that is inflammation of voice box, that is larynx, that is usually associated with hoarseness or loss of voice, and it is caused by Haemophilus influenza as well as Streptococcus pneumoniae, could be fungal and viral. So epiglottis, in case of epiglottis, it is the inflammation of cartilage that covers trachea, that is known as windpipe, and Haemophilus influenza, Streptococcus pneumoniae or Streptococcus pyogenes, they cause infections that is known as epiglottis. So these are laryngitis as well as epiglottis infections. Then otitis, that is upper respiratory tract infection, and it is known as otis media. So general term for infection or inflammation of ear fluid, scudate pus in the middle ear due to Haemophilus influenza, then Streptococcus pneumoniae or Streptococcus pyogenes. So basically this infection is related to ear and it is caused by Haemophilus influenza as well as Streptococcus pneumoniae or Streptococcus pyogenes. Then otis media, mastoides and sinusitis. So middle ear, mastoides cavity and sinuses are connected to the nasopharynx, and sinuses and Asturian tubes have ciliated epithelial cells. A virus initially invades the ciliated epithelium and this destroys ciliated cells, allowing bacteria to invade. The mastoides is an uncommon but very dangerous. Mastoides cavity is close to nervous system and have large blood vessels, and in case of sinusitis it is inflammation of sinuses and nasal passages, and upper respiratory tract infection, and most common three causative agents are Streptococcus pneumoniae as well as Haemophilus influenza as well as Moraxella catarrhalis. Then pharyngitis. So a variety of bacteria can cause infection in this category, that is pharynx, and the classic infection is strep throat, and it is caused by Streptococcus pyogenes, and it contains M protein which inhibits phagocytosis and produces pyogenic toxin which causes symptoms seen in pharyngitis, and it is caused by group A streptococci in absence of tonsils, and Streptococcus pyogenes can cause scarlet fever as well as toxic shock syndrome. See, this is in this picture you can see streptococcal pharyngitis rendered adenoid sites of throat. So in this white patches you can see bacterial growth, and this is caused by streptococcal pharyngitis. Then scarlet fever, it is caused by group A streptococci and usually seen in children of age 18 years, and symptoms usually begin with appearance of rashes and tiny bumps on the chest as well as abdomen, and can spread over the entire body and appears redder in armpits as well as groin, and rashes last for 2 to 5 days. Then in case of symptoms of scarlet fever, it can also include a very sore throat with yellow or white papules, as well as fever up to 101 degree Fahrenheit or higher. Then lymphadenopathy in neck, that is swelling of lymph nodes. Then headache, body ache, as well as nausea, and variety of antibiotic therapies available to treat scarlet fever infection. Then diphtheria, it is again a common throat infection and is caused by toxin produced by Corynebacterium diphtheriae, a potent inhibitor of protein synthesis, and it is a localized infection. It is not it gets do not spread to oral system. It is localized infection and presents as a severe pharyngitis and can be accompanied by a plague like pseudomembrane like in throat. Okay. So this is caused by Corynebacterium diphtheriae, and especially this bacteria secrete toxin which causes this particular diphtheria infection. See, in this picture you can see the swelling in white color, and in right side picture you can see Corynebacterium diphtheriae, the causative agent for this disease. So toxemia can make diphtheria life threatening and can involve multiple organ symptoms and can cause acute myocarditis, that is infection of heart, and diphtheria is transmitted by droplet aerosol as well as direct contact with skin and fomites to a lesser degree. Okay. So in case of vaccination, so vaccination against diphtheria infection is rare when vaccination is in place. So diphtheria still occurs frequently in some parts of the world, particularly where conditions not permit vaccination, and a toxin neutralization, that is exotoxin, is the most important, and the must be done as quickly as possible, and antitoxin can be neutralized free toxin. So pathogen elimination is also important. So Corynebacterium diphtheriae is sensitive to many antibiotics, and we can use different antibiotics to treat this infection. In case of pathogenesis is concerned, Corynebacterium diphtheriae is small gram positive bacillus, has V as well as L forms, and causes unique cell division process, that is snapping, and Corynebacterium is poorly invasive and effects of infection are due to exotoxin. In case of pathogenesis, so local effects includes epithelial cell necrosis as well as inflammation, and in case of pseudomembrane is composed of mixture of fibrin, leukocytes as well as cell dermis. So in diphtheria, pseudomembrane is developed and it contains mixture of fibrin as well as leukocytes and cell dermis. So size varies from small and localized to extensive, and extensive membrane can cover trachea. So incubation takes 2 to 4 days, and disease usually present as a pharyngitis or tonsillitis with fever, sore throat as well as malaise, and pseudomembrane can develop into tonsils, vulva, short platelet or pharyngeal walls and may extend downward towards larynx as well as trachea. In case of viral infections of upper respiratory tract, so rhinovirus infection, so there are several hundred serotypes of rhinoviruses and fewer than half have been characterized. So 50% that are picornavirus family and extremely small non-enveloped single stranded RNA viruses, and optimum temperature for picornavirus growth is 30 degrees Celsius and the temperature is nasopharynx. So mainly the viral infections cause infections that are related to respiratory system. They are caused by a rhinovirus group of viruses. Then parainfluenza. So there are four types of parainfluenza virus. All belongs to paramyxovirus group and single stranded enveloped virus. These are single stranded enveloped RNA viruses and contain heme agglutinin as well as neuraminidase enzyme, and transmission and pathology is similar to influenza virus but there are differences. Parainfluenza viruses replicate in the cytoplasma where influenza viruses replicate in nucleus. So it is again the common infection, viral infection of upper respiratory tract. In case of parainfluenza, it is generally more stable than influenza. With very little mutation is there in case of these viruses. Then little genetic, little antigenic drift is there. Then no antigenic shift is seen in case of parainfluenza viruses. Then parainfluenza is a serious problem in infants and small children. Only a transitory immunity to reinfection, and infection become milder as child ages. In case of bacterial infections of lower respiratory tract, it includes bacterial pneumonia, then chlamydial pneumonia, then mycoplasma pneumonia, then tuberculosis, then pertussis, then inhalation anthrax and Legionella pneumoniae and Legionellous disease as well as Q fever as well as cytocosis, that is ornithocosis. So these infections we'll discuss in next lecture. So for thanks.